Hi, I'm Brendia Miller, just a girl who feels like she barely survived from being 18 to 29, from an abusive marriage to divorce, pregnant with my sweet girl to the mom of an angel, and this was all before I was even 20. Since then, I married the high school sweetheart, had a sweet boy, wrote a few books, blogs, and in 9 years, 3 states, 4 cities, 13 homes, 2 hotels, 1 angel girl, 1 sweet boy, a bunch of jobs, and an insane amount of love and laughter. Here I am, 30 years old, talking to you, sharing my wisdom from the infinite lessons I have learned while still learning to navigate around the things that I haven't. Come along and navigate with me. There is room here for your joy, your grief, your hormones, your emotions, your friendships, relationships, heartbreak, and all of the other things that come along with being in your 30s. Hey guys, welcome back to the In Your 30s podcast, where we navigate the messy, beautiful, and sometimes uncomfortable realities of adulthood. I'm your host, Brendia Miller, and today we're diving into something that touches every aspect of our lives: the truth versus comfort. Why do so many people prefer a pretty little lie over an ugly truth? And what does that say about us? Now I get it, we've all been there. You ask someone for their opinion, and instead of honesty, you get what they think you want to hear. Maybe you've been on the other side too, though. Maybe you're holding back your real thoughts because you don't want to rock the boat or cause chaos. But here's the thing. Avoiding discomfort doesn't mean that you get to avoid the consequences. It just means that you're delaying them. And in truth, sometimes you don't even get to delay the consequences, just the realization. So let's talk about the psychology of it for a second. Humans are wired for comfort. We seek pleasure, we avoid pain, and we often crave validation. This is known as the cognitive ease principle. Our brains prefer to process familiar, comfortable information over complex, unpleasant truths. This is why it's so easy to hear that you're doing great instead of you might need to change this or tweak this. It's why people often resort to self-deception, convincing themselves that their current situation is fine even when it's not, and full-on delusions. Research shows that the brain reacts to truth and lies differently. And studies using an MRI scan reveal that when people are exposed to uncomfortable truths, areas associated with pain and discomfort actually light up in the brain. Meanwhile, when presented with agreeable falsehoods, lies basically, the brain releases dopamine, the same chemical responsible for pleasure and reward. It's no wonder we would gravitate towards comforting lies, because to our brain, being told the truth equals pain. And if you've never heard of or seen an MRI, then basically what they do is they will stick you in this machine and they will scan your brain to see what parts of it are stimulated and reacting, and those parts will light up and show activity on the MRI. And so basically they'll put you in there and they will tell you some hard truths and some agreeable falsehoods, and they will see what parts of your brain light up and receive this information. One of the issues is this need for comfort creates a society where people often prioritize being pleased over being honest. It's why we have fake positivity thriving on social media. It's why we have people who sugarcoat problems or, just completely avoid tough conversations altogether. And it's why we have politicians that spin half truths and we vote them in. I've always said that you don't really know somebody, no matter how long you're with them. And this is one of those significant reasons. You don't really ever know if someone is feeding you what you want to hear versus the truth. And unfortunately, no matter how old you get, some people do not ever actually learn to process the truth, even if it's ugly, and would rather sit with the lies. Consider the idea of toxic positivity. This is the belief that no matter how dire or difficult a situation is, people should maintain a positive mindset. I don't know about you, but that sounds crazy and it sounds so impossible. While optimism is valuable, constantly avoiding difficult truths can prevent us from facing reality and from growing. In workplaces, this can manifest as employees hesitating to speak up about different things at work, ethical concerns or inefficiencies, or even just conditions. A study on psychological safety published in Harvard Business Review found that teams perform better when employees feel safe to speak up. So, I want you to take a moment and think about how this applies to your own life. Maybe you've been lied to just to keep the peace. Maybe you lied to someone just to keep the peace. Maybe there's a relationship or a friendship that's falling apart, and when you ask that person, they tell you everything's fine, they tell you you're good, good standing in your relationship. Maybe you had a job that wasn't going nowhere, or a bad decision that needed fixing. These white lies are common in personal relationships and workplaces alike. Now, do not confuse common with normal or appropriate. Those are all different words that we often like to confuse. And when we say something's common, people think that everyone has to accept that type of situation or behavior. And that's just not the case. So the difference that I like to think about is common means it happens a lot, but it shouldn't happen. Normal means that's what's supposed to happen. So you tell me, does it sound normal to lie to people? No, but it's common and it happens all the time in the different relationships and aspects in our life and our workplace. For example, in relationships, people may avoid expressing their dissatisfaction because they fear that there's going to be conflict or even maybe rejection. And a 2020 study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that couples who engaged in avoidance-based communication, which means the couples that never have deep conversations, the couples that don't face their issues head on, you're sweeping it under the rug, so on, so forth. These couples reported lower satisfaction levels over time compared to the ones who actually faced the difficult truths head on and went for true solutions. A great example of this is seen in friendships when one person is enabling another's unhealthy habits, be it financial irresponsibility or addiction or a harmful relationship pattern. Instead of confronting their friend or their child or their sister or their brother or their cousin or their aunt or their uncle or whoever it may be, they enable the behavior because it's easier, it feels nicer. But is it really kindness or is it really even love if it prevents them from improving their life? My mom, God, I do love her, but she is the worst for this. And she and I have had so many long conversations about behaviors of like my siblings or whatever, which in hindsight, now that I've kind of changed, I've changed my phone number completely and kind of cut contact for the most part, I'm like, those conversations they never should have happened. Like, her being my parent and coming to me, even as an adult, it shouldn't have happened. It's been happening our whole lives. Like, we need to put a stop to this. But she is the absolute worst for speaking about something and then enabling that same behavior. Or if I come to her with a concern, she will agree with my concern and express that she's going to try to handle the concern or whatever. But generally, nothing ever gets done. And so many times I have had to even hold myself back because doing the right thing sometimes, honestly, causes chaos. And, there's a lot of times I've come to my mom about situations, and she's like, you know what? I've seen this too. Other people have come to me about it too. I'm working on handling it. And then, years later, it's still a situation. And I'm like, I could have just done the right thing, caused some chaos, whatever. But oftentimes, I've stopped myself from doing it too because I know the chaos that could ensue. And I didn't want to deal with it while trying to have those relationships, because sometimes the people that you love aren't lovable. They won't let you love them. They won't let you love them because the way you love them is honest. And again, people will choose comfort over honesty every single time. So they will let the people love them that treat them like crap, but tell them what they want to hear. And they will often express outbursts towards the people that say, hey, you might want to change this, or offer advice. And it's so crazy to me because we live in such a wild society where we literally learn everything from each other. Like, everything we know, we learn from someone else. And ultimately, we are triggered by advice or solutions or, criticism. And I'm not talking about the people that's being mean, and I'm not talking about the people that's tearing you down. There's a difference. You have to know the difference. But I'm talking about the people who are loving you and saying, hey, you need better. You deserve better. This job does not serve you. This relationship is so unhealthy for you. This behavior is going to kill you. Those are the people that are so important to have on your team that we often truly just take for granted. And we lash out at them often because we think we know everything and we think we can figure everything out on our own. And the truth is, we're not figuring anything out. We're just sitting in our delusion. And it's just crazy to me the way that we literally rely on each other for information and for knowledge, and we still do not want to rely on each other to that extent. Sorry for my little rant, but on a larger scale, though, you can look at this as an issue that extends to other aspects of your life, not just the people directly in your life, but it could extend to the media and politics. Politicians often tell people what they want to hear rather than what they need to hear, or even just the truth. Maybe it's not what we need to hear, but the truth would have just been nice. And sometimes promising easy solutions actually leads to complex problems and complex chaos that ultimately can overshadow what is the desired result. And oftentimes we see that the result of this promising easy solutions and, telling us what we want to hear, it normally leads to very short-term satisfaction and long-term consequences, especially on such a large scale as politics. Now, I don't generally talk about politics on here, but it definitely is a problem in America. Our political society and our political foundation has just crumbled so far. I honestly don't think that I will probably ever live to see true solutions, honestly. But generally, we can see this in every aspect of our life. It's not just relationships, it's not just work, and it's not just politics. But the harsh reality that people fail to see and don't want to see is when we choose to be lied to, we are choosing stagnation, and we're choosing to stay in the places that no longer serve us. We're no longer growing. We're no longer expanding. We're no longer learning. We're no longer fulfilling. These mindsets and these situations and relationships keep us small. So take the example of a spouse who chooses to ignore warning signs and prefers comforting lies than facing the truth. We've all done it, and we've all been in a relationship where we had a gut feeling, but we ignored our gut. We heard things, we seen things even, but we ignored the things we heard. We ignored the things we seen. We became blind and deaf and absolutely dumb real quick. And oftentimes we know that our partner is hiding something. We don't always know what it is. Maybe it's financial issues, maybe it's infidelity, but that person turning a blind eye, or us even turning a blind eye because confronting it feels too painful, only enables this behavior, and only in a short term does this actually avoid a crisis. But in the long run, it generally leads to distrust. It leads to deeper issues. It leads to resentments. It can lead to anger. It can lead to so many things. And it will crumble the foundation that whatever relationship it is affecting is built on, because it's built on lies, and it's crumbling under the weight of these truths that you're holding in and you're not saying, and the resentments and the anger and the hurt maybe that grows underneath. Now think about a parent who continually enables their grown child's bad behavior. Maybe it's poor financial habits or substance abuse. The parent might make excuses for the child. They might provide them with money or housing or support in multiple different forms without actually ever addressing the underlying issues. Therefore, not actually helping their child at all. And meanwhile, the rest of the family might be harmed by this child's actions. Or perhaps younger siblings are left to pick up the slack, or even grandchildren are put at risk by the child who is a fully grown adult's bad behavior and recklessness. This is a classic sign of the lie of enabling someone's poor behavior and the expenses that it can cost you or other loved ones, including their well-being. The unwillingness to confront the truth perpetrates a toxic cycle that damages the entire family. My mom is the worst for this, and I'm not going to go into detail on here, but let's just say that there's a lot of behaviors that are consistently enabled but talked about and are rumored to be addressed but never are. And it truly is a hard cycle to keep yourself in when you are the person that realizes this behavior is not okay. In friendships, this may play out as well. A friend might constantly cancel plans or fail to show up or make excuses for just being a really crappy person. And instead of confronting them, sometimes we lie to ourselves. Sometimes we say, you know what, they're just busy or they'll come around. But the more we allow this behavior, the more we enable them to continue treating us poorly. This lie, it's not a big deal, prevents the relationship from evolving into something healthy. And I do understand that there are seasons of busyness, but seasons. It's not every single second of every single day for years. It's just seasons. It's temporary. Seasons are temporary. If this is constant permanent behavior, it's not temporary. It's not a season. You need to nip it in the butt. Because the problem is, we think that these lies protect us, but they hold us back. A real friend is going to tell you the truth. A friend who won't tell you the truth, does not love you, is not in your corner, is not your friend. A partner who sugarcoats problems isn't helping the relationship. They're not expecting any growth. They're not wanting it to move out of the situation that it's in. There's no effort being put in there. And a society that prioritizes comfort over honesty is setting itself up for failure. Look at America as it is right now. I mean, honestly. Another consequence, missed opportunities for personal growth. If you've never heard constructive criticism, how do you expect to grow? Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset found that individuals who embrace challenges and criticism are significantly more successful than those who avoid discomfort. But how do we change this? How do we embrace the truth even when it hurts? How do we make truth something that we value over being comfortable? First things first is we have to be willing to sit with discomfort. We have to be willing to sit with constructive criticism, not abuse, not being put down, not being torn apart, but constructive criticism instead of getting defensive and feeling like we need to protect ourselves. You have to ask yourself, what if they are right? And explore that this could be a possibility. Now, you could always look over this and explore it and determine that while it could have been a possibility, it's not true. But if you get defensive, you're going to put a wall up. You're going to block the ability to look at this from an unbiased, I have to protect myself position. Research on cognitive biases shows that our brains tend to dismiss conflicting information to protect our existing beliefs. It's truly a protection mechanism in place by our brain, and we have to learn when we really need protection versus when we need to open up and listen. The second thing is that we have to also give people the same respect. If you care about someone, you owe them honesty, not cruelty, not harshness, but truth, spoken with kindness and good intentions. Brene Brown, a leading researcher on vulnerability and courage, often says that clear is kind, unclear is unkind. The most compassionate thing that you can do is tell someone the truth in a way that helps them grow. And sometimes that means that they are going to grow away from us and they're going to grow in different directions. And we're also going to have to maybe take accountability for maybe our parts and our actions. And then finally, we need to stop equating truth with betrayal. Someone telling you the truth isn't against you. They're probably the only person for you because someone who tells the truth these days is very, very rare. The best leaders, the best friends, the best partners are the ones who help us see reality and keep us grounded and not just what we wish were true. A good way to practice this is to start small. If you usually say everything's fine when it's not, pause. Try, I'm actually struggling a little bit. If you normally avoid giving constructive feedback, practice saying, I noticed something that might help. It doesn't have to be aggressive for you to be honest. It doesn't have to be mean for it to be honest. It doesn't have to be cruel for it to be honest. It does not have to be negative for it to be honest, because if it's negative, it's not going to affect that person in a positive way, which should be your intention with your honesty. At the end of the day, the truth will come out. And the question that you need to ask yourself is, do you want to hear it in time to do something about it, or do you want to hear it when it's too late? Oftentimes, I think people truly want to hear it when it's too late because they're so comfortable in their delusions and their lies that they cannot come out of it. Choosing truth means choosing growth. Choosing comfort at the expense of truth, that's just choosing to stay stuck. That is all for today. Thank you for listening to this short episode of In Your 30s. I hope today that you go forth and choose growth, and I hope today that you go forth and you choose to focus on people in your corner that help you with growth and help you with the truth and seeing who you really are instead of seeing through the rose-colored glasses that you've painted on yourself or the relationships or whatever aspect it is in your life. I will see you guys next time on In Your 30s, and y'all have a great week. Bye.